welcome back to Pop Culture Graveyard. I am Hollis. With me, as always, is Dave. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Hollis.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our second annual Shocktober.
Tober.
We have to do it every year because I never get tired of your echo on that.
It's a monster truck style thing.
It really is.
Yeah.
Down and dirty in the bog.
Big
Sweet Park. So Shocktober begins, our second annual Shocktober. I'm very excited. I mean, we've made it over a year now. It's amazing there are so few of you listening.
Well,
we've given you every opportunity.
Shout out to Jerry.
And Jerry Harmon. We even made up Jerry. We know a couple of people we could list, but
you know how the famous people who have fans, and then they give the fans a cute name based on their name.
Oh,
in an interview, it's like, hey, what does PCG call their fans? They're like, I'm not sure what you mean. We just call him Jerry.
Yeah. That's like on Tenacious D, Kyle and Rage Cage. They had a fan, and they do that song together, Special Things, which was my favorite Tenacious D song ever. But I'd love to meet that fan. I'd love to meet Jerry.
Flight of the Conchords, they had a fan.
Oh yeah,
they had one fan.
I
forget her name.
We're just going to jump in because this movie eats like a meal, Dave.
I have a surprise for you on this one.
Ooh.
I'm going to punch up at it. It's not my favorite movie.
Wow. Okay.
And I know that we're always very nice to movies, but I feel like The Shining is a very big boy who has established himself and can take a little criticism.
Wow, this is awesome.
Who knows nothing about movies.
This is awesome two ways. One, because it's something different here, you starting out from that spot. But two, because I'd be very curious to see where we end up. Either me jumping in and kicking De Niro style while you kick this around, or you coming around and actually loving the film as much as I do.
Yeah, I think a lot of my stuff is not my cup of tea. That's all.
That's valid.
I know it's beloved.
That's valid. Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to dedicate this episode to the memory of Shelley Duvall, because Shelley passed away not too long ago, and this film is only as effective as it is due to her stellar performance. In a claustrophobic movie starring nothing but a haunted hotel, an unhinged Jack Nicholson, and a child actor, Shelley holds the whole damn thing together, and she's never gotten enough credit for her work on this. And much like her character Wendy, who does all the day-to-day work at the Overlook while Jack sleeps, Shelley does all the little things that help lead the audience through this story. So big shout out to Shelley Duvall.
Totally agree. I think everybody in it is good, and Shelley is great.
Yeah, I stand by that.
I mean, she's so great that I think she outshines everybody but the kid.
No pun intended.
Job. Oh.
Yeah, this movie has people like me who absolutely love it, people who hate it, including Stephen King when it came out, and everyone in between, So there's stuff here for you no matter how you feel about it, I feel. Because even within this film, wouldn't you say there are some things in it that you really enjoy?
Well, I'm a graphic designer. This was easily one of the most beautiful films, decor-wise, I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm ripping on it already.
There you go.
It was absolutely beautiful. And yeah, I felt like Shelley Duvall. I felt like Wendy. I've never been in a edifice of that grandeur. I've never stood in a building of that. I mean, I guess you could say maybe Grand Central.
Yeah, Grand Central.
Or, I've been in a couple old castles, but I don't know. It was pretty damn special.
It's funny that you said that, because much like I said about the Institute in High Anxiety, even with all the killing, I think the Overlook Hotel looks like a fantastic place to live. I would love to live there. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's funny. I wonder if there was any of that Reese's Pieces worry for the, because I know that like it's related to the hotel, and it doesn't have two hotels that it's somehow related to. It's like it's implying this hotel, but it's shot at this hotel. I'm not
Right.
sure which one is Colorado.
Hmm.
But anyway, I wonder if that hotel and all the shots, if the owners of that hotel are like, I don't know if we want to be associated with a,
Well,
quintuple homicide.
you know what, Dave? In this day and age, if a hotel is related to anything this iconic and they don't lean into it, that's a big mistake. You should have a haunted wing at least. You should play it. You should change the carpeting to match the
Oh yeah,
carpeting.
you should. Yeah, and you should have the murder ladies do one of their podcasts in your ballroom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah.
One of the things about this movie that the detractors of the movie dislike is that Jack Nicholson, his portrayal of Jack, he kind of goes from 0 to 60 crazy wise almost immediately. He seems messed up. Like the drive up, before we even get to the Donner Party thing, well,
Mhm.
you should have eaten your breakfast. Like he's ready
That's
to
the
kill
thing.
Danny.
That's where I hit pause and took a minute to decide whether or not I was going to call you and say I don't want to do it. Seriously,
Because Jack was already halfway to Crazy Town.
I was like, I don't like the way this guy's talking to this kid. I'm already uncomfortable. I may not want to do this one. And I actually stopped there overnight and then started it again the next day.
Mm.
I attributed it in the end, when I thought about it, I attributed it that we'd only seen him in an interview up until then. So he was putting on his best face for the interview. So that is 100% fake. I need a job, Jack Torrance.
You're absolutely right, because immediately after that, it's followed by a phone call to Wendy. And she's like, ooh, sounds like you got the job. And it's like, right.
Yeah, like
Like,
that all that goodness and kindness that he puts on for those guys, his wife and child get none of it.
none of it.
Yeah.
Also, Dave, this is a guy who has just he's in the middle of 5 months or whatever, white knuckling sobriety.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
right on the edge, you know?
Yeah. Isn't that what this movie is about? What happens if you quit drinking?
Yeah.
This is
This
one of the
movie is
ways.
about
This is one of the ways it can go.
it's a movie about a lot of things. It's about how some people should not have kids. It's about
Yeah.
how some people should not get married. Anyway, one of the many reasons I love this film is that no matter how many times I watch it, I always notice something new. This is a film that probably is in my top 5 rewatched films of all time. I've seen it almost as many times probably as The Godfather and Jaws. Yet this rewatch is the very first time I noticed certain details. And one of them is they're driving up in the car and Wendy's hair is kind of blowing as if either the window's open or the AC is on. But they must have the heat on, and the heat doesn't really blow at you, and we would hear the exhaust, but it's just blowing. And she has a turtleneck on, so the AC is not on. So there's little tiny things like that.
Before you move on,
Yeah.
as they were getting into the colder regions, because it looks like they're starting off low, it's not too bad out.
Right.
As they get higher, you start to see snow on the side of the road. What kind of car are they in?
A Volkswagen Bug or Beetle.
They're in a VW Bug. There is,
Yeah.
I don't know the guy who does it, but there is a great bit a guy does, and it's very short and simple. He says, have you ever used the heat in a VW Bug? Do you want to know what it feels like? Lock yourself in a meat locker and set your left foot on fire. That's how the heat feels in a VW Bug. It's one vent down by your left foot. You turn the heat on and incredibly hot air comes out of a vent near your left foot.
That makes sense because the engine's in the back. The front is just a boot.
It can't blow the engine heat
trunk
on you from the front. Yeah.
Right.
So it's like working it back up to the front.
Okay,
or
so
something.
there really isn't any possible vent up front.
I don't think so. But I've always loved that bit. Lock yourself in a meat locker, set your left foot on the fire. And weirdly fitting because it involves locking yourself in a fridge.
Right. Right.
I always see. I don't always. I watched that scene, the driving up scene, very closely because I have always heard stories that when Decker and his love and Rachel drive away at the end of Blade Runner,
Hmm.
that there was no footage of them driving into the mountains. A phone call was made, and the footage was borrowed from The Shining for the final driving scene.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we'll check and make sure that I didn't just make that up. But
Okay. Anyway, let's talk about the interview a little bit. I love the character of Mr. Allman. He's totally believable. He's an old-time movie star, by the way. So he's just great.
he's the Herb
Barry,
Tarlick of
yeah.
the Overlook Hotel.
He's got a great outfit. Yeah, Barry
Yeah,
Nelson,
he got two
old-time
good
movie star.
outfits.
He has great outfits. The leather on a guy that age back then was so on point, trying to be youthful because he's in a people business, the toupee. But
Overlook means friendship.
yeah, he's got some of the mayor from Jaws,
A little bit.
Mayor Vaughn energy. But yeah, that interview, at one point, Mr. Allman says something like, our people in Denver recommended Jack highly, and for once I believe them. And I'm like, no, no, no. They're just as wrong as every other time. Don't believe them. This guy's unhinged. And he seems kind of like, even when he says Jack's a school teacher and he's like, not anymore, asshole. Like, he's got that energy of like, I'm a writer, you know?
Yeah,
There are flags there that Allman isn't picking up on. You know,
yeah.
Jack's weird.
He's trying to sweeten himself, but he's letting it leak through.
Yeah. And the guy they bring in is weird as well. And he's almost like this kind of doppelganger. He's like a pocket-sized Jack Nicholson, this guy.
Which
And he
guy?
just sits there.
The guy who comes in the office? Not like,
Yeah.
yes, master.
Yeah.
Ah. He's like an
Yeah.
assistant, like a quiet, weird assistant.
Yeah. Or like the familiar of Mr.
Yeah,
Allman. Like
yeah. That's what he's like.
yeah, it's really weird.
It's partly because
Bill Watson.
you know you're watching The Shining, so you're looking at everybody like, all right, what's this
So
guy's
true.
deal?
Yeah. So but like the way he looks at him, it's almost like, why are you going to bring this guy in if after the interview, when Jack goes home, you don't chat with him? Like, so what'd you think of him? Because he's staring at Jack like, yeah, this guy's fucking weird. This guy's
Yeah,
bonkers. This guy's on the verge of cabin fever already.
right.
You know, he looks at him
Yeah,
weird. Like when he tells Jack about the trouble they had, that's one moment where Jack reacts like a normal person would, where he's like, wow, that's quite a story. But then he goes right back into, they're going to love it. My wife is all like,
yeah.
I-
They love scary movies or something like that. Yeah,
it's the worst interview ever in a lot of ways, you know?
and then the later reference, he literally goes with "ooh,
Yeah.
spooky." So there's some exposition going on in that interview for the movie. Uh, like we need to establish why they're going to be all alone at this hotel. Um, so the interview and the tour of the hotel involves sort of a repeated like, yeah, we can't stay open these months. It costs too much to plow the road, so we just keep someone here. That felt a little, I don't know, like he almost could have said it at the camera. Like that's
Yeah.
why they're alone, everyone.
Well, you know, it's funny you bring that up because, and I can't believe I've never thought of this before, but Mr. Allman explains to Jack that the Overlook season runs from May 15th to October 30th. So after that, everyone clears out. After that, it's just Jack, his wife, and Danny. So if their season ends on October 30th, then the first day for this family being alone, which kicks off all the madness, is Halloween,
Right.
October
I
31st.
Yeah. Yeah, on October 30th, he says every one of these people will be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, well that makes it even more appropriate that we're doing this for Shocktober.
Yeah. Yeah. It kicks it off. It kicks off
Yeah, we're
both
kicking
of
it off
our
with a Halloween movie.
yeah. And it's really bizarre. And I'm shocked that like Kubrick never made a bigger deal of that, because right after that, everyone, you know, it's the last day. And then there's kind of like a jump cut. It's almost like 1 month later or something. They want to show us how they've been living, and Wendy's doing everything. She even brings Jack breakfast. He's sleeping. Like, they jump ahead so far, but it all starts on Halloween. So I think this is very fitting. But let's go back to like other things that happen beforehand. We
Okay.
learn some things, like you were saying, there's exposition. There's weird things like, hey, did you guys bring your luggage? And he's like, yeah, it's right over there. This is their final move ever. They're moving in. That's so much luggage.
Yeah, it's a mountain of
It's
luggage.
they must have been kicked
Yeah,
out in Denver or wherever. Jack is sitting there. Did you notice what he's reading?
I did not.
He's reading Playgirl magazine. This is essentially almost a second chance for them to be like, hey, wait a minute, we don't want you here. And he's
Right.
reading Playgirl magazine. Here's a weird thing that makes some people, some really conspiracy theory minded people, think that that's a hint that Jack was not only abusing Danny physically, but sexually. That's how deep some people get, Dave.
Wow. Yeah.
I just think it's a funny coincidence. And Jack probably thought it was a funny thing to do, or
Yeah,
Kubrick.
yeah.
It's just, that's what
And
it
Kubrick
smacks
was
of.
like, "Yeah, go ahead." Jack
Mhm.
said, "I gotta do this," and Kubrick said, "Go for it," because might as well start setting the tone how fucking creepy you are.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
By the way, a little aside, I worked in the magazine business. I was editor in chief of a men's magazine, and we shared an office with Playgirl, with the ladies who put out Playgirl. So I have a little history with Playgirl. It's a fun magazine. I'm sure Jack enjoyed reading. We also learn while he's giving them a tour that it was built on an ancient Indian burial ground, much like the Poltergeist uh,
Yeah, I didn't like that.
house. No,
I was like,
why
"Why
give
are
that?
you throwing that in?" Like, it's like double jeopardy over here. There's a
Yeah.
murder, and it's like we couldn't decide between burial ground and previous murders, so we went with both.
Also, it shows you Jack is like, what do you got? Yeah, I'm buying in. All right, I'm
Yeah,
buying in again. I want to work here. I
right,
want to be a part of all this
right.
madness. Maybe on some level, if you believe in reincarnation or whatever, Jack is like, yeah, I want this job. I want to be here. Oh, it's tied into all this creepy stuff. Yeah. Also, Ullman is showing the family their apartment. Jack, his lovely wife Wendy, are seeing their apartment. And there are a couple of girls coming down, young girls like 18, 19, coming down the landing.
Jack stops.
Goodbye, Mr. Ullman. Yeah. Mr. Ullman's like, goodbye, girls. And Jack is like looking and leering at them. Jack
Mhm.
has a roving eye. So we learned that he's not that invested in Wendy.
He's a creep. I mean, he's a creep. He's what's the word? Lascivious. Like he's
Yeah.
looking. Like he's open to
He's
the possibility
open.
at all times.
Yeah. I love the interview process and the tour because it's our only time to get to know Jack, kind of, before he takes a trip to Crazy Town, which is like, it's no slow burn. It's like really fast. So we know that he doesn't care. He'll be anywhere where there was a murder. He's not swayed by that. He
Mm.
might even be attracted to it. He doesn't care about the Indian burial ground desecration or anything. We know he doesn't care about Wendy. He's got a roving eye. He maybe even cheats on her. Who knows? We learn from the other scene that happens kind of simultaneously with the interview where Danny gets hurt. So we learn that Jack hurt Danny in the past. And so the way that Kubrick lays out all these elements that'll come into play later in major scenes is masterful. Because the tour, we see the little apartment, we see the hedge
Mm.
maze, we see the snow cat, the gold ballroom, the walk-in freezer. And of course, you don't realize these spots become plot points until later. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, and
Um,
you only know that I'd say most people who like this movie see it many times, and you can only appreciate that the first time that uh, you are being given a tour of where your movie's about to take place. To the point where it's like, this is the kitchen. It's so big. This is where we lock all the cold food and the sundries. Um, Let me open it for you. See, it's a big, heavy door that someone couldn't, it's like, really? letting you know where the excitement is going to take place.
Yeah. Wendy has a great final line that wraps up the tour scene. After Mr. Ullman says, by 5 o'clock tonight, you'll never know anybody was ever here. And Wendy says, just like a ghost ship, huh?
Yeah.
Fucking A, Wendy. Fucking A. It's exactly like a ghost ship. That's kind of funny to me,
Yeah, I remember her saying that. I remember making note of that. Wendy is so normal. She's the most normal person. And
She's us.
she just gets abused. Yeah, she's the audience. Yeah.
She's the avatar for the audience.
Yeah. Well, look at this place. It's so beautiful. Like, I was literally thinking everything she's thinking.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and so well done that way. Like, I'm also literally thinking, get away from this guy. I'm also literally thinking, put together a plan.
Yeah. And also, she's got a husband who is quote unquote possessed, and she's got a son who you could kind of call possessed. She's the only one who is kind of outside of, she's not taken over by anything except a strong urge to protect her son.
Mm-hmm.
So she's the strongest character there in a lot of ways.
Yeah, she's also she's the sanest. She's also not hooked into this, whatever this supernatural happening is. She's not connected to it. Jack is, the cook is,
Halloran.
Mr. Halloran is, Danny is, the hotel is, anyone who appears, quote unquote, ethereally in the hotel obviously is, and Wendy is not.
Yeah.
She's disconnected from it.
Right. Speaking of Dick Halloran, I love Scatman Crothers. The best voice.
Hong Kong Phooey, baby.
Hong Kong Phooey.
I have a friend who, if someone says, or I had a friend, if someone says, what's up, Doc? He always will quietly be like, what's up, Doc?
Yeah.
He'll do the other what's up, Doc. Yeah. But it looks like a Doc. What's up, Doc? Love Scatman Crothers. Always have.
Oh, yeah. Apropos of nothing, he does a little unintentional whistle at one point when someone burns toast.
Oh, right.
And
there's a name for those.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just love that. My friend and I, Jeff, we always, that's a big moment for us. But I love Dick Halloran's 360 when he's talking to Danny about Shining, because he's like, come on, Danny, tell me about it. Who says you ain't supposed to? Come on. And Danny's like, okay, what's in room 237? And Dick is like, nothing. You hear me? Stay out. What are you trying to get us killed? Like, his turnaround. Dick just used to talk to his granny, and he thinks it will be fun to talk to Danny about it. And he's like, oh shit, this kid shines like a motherfucker. No, put it back. Put it away.
Right. Yeah. Oh, you're a gun enthusiast? I'm a gun enthusiast too. Yeah, I like to.
I want to wipe out kids on a school bus.
Yeah. It's like, hold on now. Hold on.
Jesus. I love the scene of Danny and Wendy in the hedge maze. It's probably the sweetest scene in the entire movie, if this movie has a sweet scene. But it's also great exposition in its way, because they probably take that walk in the maze a couple of times a week at least. There's nothing else to do around here. And later we can buy that Danny has mastered it. It's almost like Clarice doing the obstacle course at the beginning of Silence of the Lambs. We learn that, okay, this person is kind of learning things. They're tough. They've done this. You buy it later when they can survive.
Yeah.
Also, it speaks to their relationship. It's Danny and his mom and Jack. They're two very separate factions, two different tribes coexisting.
I actually said that when it starts with a small running snowball fight, I think, before they head into the maze.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I literally said to myself, enjoy this.
These are the salad days.
This is the warm, loving fun that they're going to have. That's going to help you be that much more sad with what's happening to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Wendy is isn't it so pretty? isn't it so fun? Isn't it so beautiful?
Boy,
And
this is
Danny's
big,
just
huh?
like, yeah, yes, mom. Yes, mom. Yes, mom.
Yeah.
Like, that's just so positive.
Yeah. And it's so sweet when they hit a dead end and they're like, up, guess we got to go around. And they're just let
That's the
Danny
fun
run.
of a hedge maze.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
There's something I noticed this time too, when I probably should have noticed earlier, but like it's when Wendy is opening and then pouring out that god awful fruit cocktail, that like
We,
industrial size one.
we used to have that all the time.
Yeah. As a kid, I loved it. I'm like, why don't we have that every night?
I
My
had
mom's like, no.
one of my first rap lines was back then when I put my cocktail on the table, the shit said Libby's on the label.
Oh, the repetition is gorgeous. That's great. Yeah, I loved it as a kid, but now I wouldn't drink that syrup if you
Oh
paid
my
me.
God. And
It's so
remember
bad for
those,
you.
like, the grapes had been in there so long that they'd lost
They're
their green.
yellow.
They were like
Yeah.
whitish yellow. Yeah.
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 So while she's doing that, the TV is playing gruesome news reports. And it finishes up a story about someone named Rutherford who was serving time for a 1968 shooting. And then it focuses on a missing Aspen woman who disappeared on a hunting trip with her husband. No one says it, but I immediately thought this time around, oh, the husband probably killed her. And I think this is a sort of foreshadowing, and he probably ends up getting away with it because of the incoming snowstorm. The search will be called off because of the weather, and like I thought about husbands killing wives and what it's kind of hinting at. And and a part of me was like, did Jack get that woman? Did he somehow go to
Right. Did he go for a hike? Did he go for any hikes?
So it's like
No,
there's
but
this air of
funny thing is,
violence.
you're it's funny because your brain is saying, maybe Jack had something to do with it. What are the chances two husbands killed? It's like, if you know anything about husbands killing wives, the chances are very high.
Yeah.
I won't get too into it, but
Right.
a lot of wives are in danger from their husbands.
That's all most people kill. That's all serial killers go after most of the time. It's the exception to the rule when there's like, the mad man killer of,
Yeah. He's killing bachelors
yeah.
all over all along
Oh, we
the
got to
East
stop that
Coast.
bachelor killer. We can't let that happen in civilized society. But the violence towards women isn't just physical, like in the famous Axe bathroom scene. If you ask me, the scarier scene is Jack telling off Wendy while he's trying to work. The psychic violence of that, the emotional violence of that. Someone she thought she knew, someone she's married to, being so cold-blooded and unnecessarily mean and cursing at her is chilling. And at
Yeah.
least when he's trying to kill her with an axe, he's being honest about the hatred inside.
Mhm.
This is much more wounding, I think, and much more like she doesn't know what to do with that. Yeah, you run from an axe. What do you do with this?
And there's that thing where he's like, he's supposed to be holding it back, and it's like leaking out his basically his hatred of her. He hates her for ruining his life. He's wrong, but he does hate her for ruining his life, and it's leaking out. And it's like, you're not doing a great job of hiding your hatred.
No.
And you're right. At least when he's holding an axe, or at least when he's like coming up the stairs to bash her brains in, he's just letting it out.
Yeah. You're so right about him being wrong, about her ruining his life. Wendy's the best thing that ever happened to that fucking guy. She created something beautiful, their child, out of this monster, it turns out. She is the only one doing work at this fucking hotel.
You keep saying it, and I have no problem with the fact that you keep saying it. She's the only one who even has a pair of like work clothes. Like,
yeah.
She puts on her work coveralls and she goes and she reads the meters and stuff. Like, and then later he's like, I gotta do all these things, taking care. And it's like, you're not doing shit.
You're not
buddy.
doing shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? Her overalls get all the publicity, but my favorite Shelley fashion in this whole thing is this yellow Southwest montage blazer that you can only get away with wearing if you're shut off from humanity. Like,
I actually, when I saw that outfit, I was like, is she going through closets? Like, did she find that? Like,
Is
that
that the
looks like
Lost and Found?
that looks like something from the Lost and Found. Yeah.
Yeah, it almost looks like half of a nudie suit, you know, the kind that like the Flying Burrito Brothers used to wear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's wild. I think I know the answer to this based on how you feel about this film. But how willing are you to jump into certain things like when Wendy and Danny are in front of the TV is playing and there's no wire attached. It's somehow playing without a plug in a wall.
But that's like a fourth time, right? I mean,
Well, it's something that has been built up over multiple viewings by different,
and
observations.
to the point where this guy who's never seen the movie front to back knows about it.
Right.
Also, I've seen that movie. That's like Summer of 40 something.
Summer of 42. And they go
Yeah.
crazy about the number 42 too. It's on Danny's shirt.
Yeah.
It's on the license plate. It's a couple of other things. But yeah.
I did like Danny's Apollo sweater. That was very nice.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Yeah, homemade. Yeah, the TV being unplugged is something I knew about. See, that's the thing. It's very hard. There were so many things that had already been drilled into my head.
Yeah,
I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to bash your brains in. I knew that. I knew this drive up from the Blade Runner story, which, by the way, the drive also reminded me of. It's a deep cut, but there's a similar drive in the intro to Mork and Mindy.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's Colorado.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a similar drive. There's so many other things. There was a momentary loss of muscular coordination. I think I brought this up before for a different quote, but WLIR, low income radio, my friends used to call it. They would play little clips between songs sometimes.
Yeah, they would,
which was amazing. And I had one of my mixtapes had some songs that I recorded direct from the radio. And one of the songs, I believe before a Squeeze song, right before the song, it went, a momentary loss of muscular coordination. And then the song kicked in.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he gets your gun, maybe?
It was, it all went wrong when I grew jealous.
Oh, God, late era.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't.
That's a DRE. That's not LIR, pal.
It might have been DRE. Yeah.
if that's the era of Squeeze, I'm going really deep, but
But it was great to see the rest of that monologue because it's a momentary loss of muscular coordination is good, but a miscalculation of foot-pounds per square inch is even better.
Yeah.
Like this methodical scientific description of how how he yanked his son's arm out of the socket.
Yeah. How's that for exposition?
Yeah. That was great. There's some really nice monologues in this.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. I also, my friends being the alcoholics and bartenders and whatever that I was going to say we are and we were.
We are.
There's been a lot of, I'm the type of guy who likes to know who's buying his drinks, Lloyd. Portland, Oregon, for that matter. Just, there were quotes in there that I was like, oh, that's what that is. Oh, that's what that is.
Highly quotable movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, Blade Runner, that bartender is Tyrell.
Oh, from the Tyrell Corporation?
Yeah, that is Mr. Tyrell of the Tyrell Corporation is Lloyd.
Here's what I'll say about everyone who goes crazy in Room 237, the documentary.
You said earlier, I'm not going to go all Room 237 on you, which I had no idea what that meant.
Okay.
I immediately put it together like, oh, that's what they use for the conspiracies. But
exactly right. That's what people who draw all kinds of things out of this movie, either saying that it was Kubrick used this story as a stand-in to talk about the annihilation of the Native Americans, to Kubrick used this movie to talk really about the Holocaust, to everything from like the number 42 being important somehow, so much so that there's 42 vehicles in the Overlook parking lot. Like, they get really deep. And here's what I'll say about it. I love all of it.
I enjoy that. Me too.
And I'd especially appreciate it if they put in front of all of these facts, hey, we noticed some really interesting coincidences.
Right. Yeah.
But they don't do that. What they do
Right.
is they kind of mention all of these things, and then they sweep them all underneath the proverbial carpet of Stanley Kubrick had a 200 IQ.
Okay.
And sometimes a guy with a 200 IQ just thinks that the Calumet baking powder looks better turned this way, or looks better turned that way.
I actually noticed products that were turned,
Yeah.
like, hey, turn those Frosted Flakes. Let them see the Frosted Flakes.
Yeah, he's not
Yeah.
always telling you that the genocide of the Native Americans was wrong by doing that.
Yeah.
Sometimes Kubrick smoking a cigar is just him smoking a cigar. It's not
Hey,
always
nicely done.
It's not always a dick. Anyway, that said, the film is beautiful to look at. There's a lot in it to pull your eye in a million directions, and it lends itself to conspiracy theorists because of this.
Yeah, the hugeness of it definitely opens up. And think about it. This is a movie that contains, I don't know, upwards of 500 black and white photographs.
Yeah.
So you're telling, I guarantee you there is not a single photograph in that movie that has not been zoomed in on by someone.
Right. Yeah. You could tell a story just with those.
Yeah. I mean, each room, they're weirdly plain and ornate at the same time. There's carpet, there's drapes, there's doorknobs, there's glasses, there's lights, oh my God, yeah, it's a perfect environment to start drawing parallels and be like, he shot in a library and went to a theater, but he was shot in a theater and went to a library. Like,
yeah,
7 letters in Kennedy,
right,
like,
right.
hate that stuff. I mean, I hate that stuff when it's delivered as it makes you think. Like,
right.
No, don't say, if you say all that stuff and at the end go, it's entertaining. I go, it absolutely is. But if you go, it makes you think, then I go, oh my God.
Yeah, God spelled backwards is dog.
Yeah.
I can find a million things in the English language that are just as ridiculous and just as coincidental. But I think a lower IQ makes more out of coincidences than they are. And a lot of that happens. Another crazy thing that happens with movies that you watch a lot, and I'm guilty of this, is that the film evolves from being a horror into unintentionally being a comedy at points. And I kind of sometimes have felt like this film has become a comedy because of Jack's expressions, which in the throes of madness or anger simply read as funny to me. Sometimes I see Goodfellas as a comedy.
I can tell you a scene that almost made me laugh. The skeletons and the cobwebs. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, just the
I was
ball.
like, wait, what is it? What are you doing? What is it? This is a perfectly scary movie. You didn't have to have her run into a room full of skeletons and cobwebs that up until now, it's like, but I thought all these dead people were mid-rot or perfectly healthy.
Well, that's what I was going to point out. We see these people when you're doing the flashback to the Fish and Goose soiree back in 1921 or whatever. And they're in the prime of their life, kind of, even if they're split down the middle. And yet you're like, but here's what they'd look like if they decayed while making a phone call.
Right. Well, if they decayed while having a salon in a salon outside the library. Yeah. Yeah. Just a bunch of people like sitting in chairs with like Halloween cobwebs. And I was just like, she's looking for Danny, and it's like scary without scary because we've spent 2 hours making sure you find it scary because we've really worked our asses off, and then she turns the corner and it's like scary because it's skeletons.
It's almost like a different type of scary. It's almost like the spirits were like, hey, let's dress up this place for Halloween, let's get another scare out of her.
It was very Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
What are
Uh,
those stores that pop up? They're like Spirit Halloween.
oh
It was like
yeah,
somebody opened one of those in
in
the
the Overlook.
Overlook.
Uh, I love Dick Halloran. I love the fact that he exists. I love his relationship with Danny, how Danny contacts him through Shining. First of all, Dick Halloran in his little Miami home is my favorite. I love his
I did
home.
I did not know there were blaxploitation paintings.
I love it. This funky
His
Ohio
paintings
Players
are
album like artwork.
amazing.
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 I love
Yeah.
his bed. I love his lamps. I love his bar. He's living the good life. He's living his
Yeah.
best life.
He works hard
Um,
all season long, and then he takes a great 3 months.
he does just so he can
Yeah.
live in that great place. If you're an older folk too, what a place to summer in. But here's something. Dick Halloran, he catches a plane, he rents a car, he borrows a snowcat, and he does all of it in this hectic race to get to Danny. That's how much trouble he knows was going down at the Overlook. And yet he doesn't think to bring a gun or a can of mace or a pointed stick.
I know.
And
It is
he's
the
older. He's an older gentleman. He needs something to protect himself or to protect Danny. What did he think he was getting into? And he comes in, hello? Hello? WTF, Dick?
Yeah, I mean, it was cruel. It was a cruel thing to do in the movie. The movie maker, what's his name? Kubrick?
Stanley Kubrick.
He did a cruel thing. He had this guy wake up in the middle of the night, because I'm going to go even further back. Wake up in the middle of the night. He feels Danny pulling at him. He knows this is good trouble. He tries to take care of it by phone. He can't. And he starts this process. And he does all that effort, which I'm not going to repeat. You just went through it. And he catches the pointy side of an axe in his chest. I mean, there's not even a scuffle. It's just so mean. He's like one of the only likable people in the movie besides Wendy. I mean, you can
It
like
seems,
Danny, but Danny's creepy, you know.
yeah, it seems like it exists to give us a body count, to give us a victim, to prove like, hey, this Jack, he really would do it. He is really going to kill Danny. He is really going to kill his wife. Whereas up
But
until
how
then, you might have,
mean to place that victim in Florida and then drag him all the way back to give him an
yeah.
axe in the chest.
It's if I had never seen The Shining and I watched it today for the first time, I'd be really invested in Dick Halloran. And kind of like what I said when we did The Fall Guy, I love Dan Tucker. And I was like, if they kill Dan Tucker, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I feel about Dick Halloran. I love this character.
I can tell you a real, something that, you'll never get to do. Last night I got to say to myself, "Oh, I think that Halloran's purpose is to put his jacket on Wendy and Danny when this is all over and say with that great voice, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay." I think that's what they're going to use him for. I think that's why they're bringing him all the way back. I bet his snowcat arrives not just in time, but after they've dealt with it. And now you're worried about them being all alone and freezing. It's okay. Scatman Crothers is here. And then I went, what the fuck?
Yeah, I want to see your version. I want the Dave Redux.
Yeah, I really thought that's what he was there for. I was like,
Yeah.
he even had I was like, that's the jacket he's going to wrap around them.
You've got a kinder, gentler Shining, and I want to see it where Jack is the only victim. In my opinion, there's one false note in the whole movie, and I want to know how you feel about it. And it's specifically when Jack is locked in the freezer
Mhm.
and a quote unquote spirit clearly unlocks the freezer door and lets Jack out. Because up until then, you have a million explanations that might be used for everything that's going on, all of the mental and emotional things these characters have been experiencing and that we've been watching. But once that demon or whatever unlocks that door, there's
Yeah.
one interpretation where there used to
Mhm.
be a million. How do you feel about that moment?
Yeah, it removes the vague. There is the possibility of supernatural happenings. there's the possibility of no supernatural happenings. There's the possibility of just insanity. And, you're left guessing. And yeah, the unlocking of that door says not just ghosts that can lift things, open things, close things. A mistake. I'm going to hear the clunk of Grady the ghost removing the pin and opening the latch. And that's what they did. They played the clunk of it. The other one for me was Danny's injury on his neck. He said an old woman did it. It's a physical thing that happened. His father went to the room. There's an old woman in there, an old woman ghost. So now I'm like, okay, the ghosts are real. Which, if you're me, you're like, okay, now I'm not scared.
Well,
Because
I just want to point out, Danny said an old woman did it. But again, we know that Danny, there's no evidence. It happens outside of a scene. We see the door open. And we only see the old woman later.
I agree.
So that could still be explained away.
Yeah, but Danny wouldn't have made up an old woman.
Tony might have.
Tony might have. Fucking Tony.
Tony the Tiger, Frosted Flakes.
Oh my God. Room 227.
227 is an African American comedy.
I might have mentioned this before. People will say, like, you don't think The Exorcist is scary? I'm like, well, not really, because I don't think any of that stuff is scary, because I don't think any of it is possible. So I find it all silly. I find a lot of it silly. And the funny thing is I'm like, people are like, well, what is scary? I'm like, Alien. Alien is scary. And they're like, why is Alien scary and The Exorcist isn't? I'm like, because Alien could happen. And The Exorcist couldn't.
How dare you?
I know, it's a terrible thing to say to someone who loves The Exorcist, but I've never, supernatural stuff, if you want to scare me with supernatural stuff, you have to jump scare and have some, I wasn't really scared by the rotting woman's body.
Yeah.
I'm not scared by large amounts of blood. I'm not scared by creepy twins. And I have to say, I think I'm probably desensitized to pictures of hacked bodies, because he showed those two girls laying in the hallway hacked to bits, or hacked up. And while I'm like, oh, that's terrible. Ugh, that's terrible. I don't feel fear. I felt very little fear during this movie.
You would have been such a better husband to Wendy than Jack ever was, Dave.
Has anyone published that book? That book is worth publishing, no?
Oh, All Work and No Play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yeah, I mean, there was like 350 pages there.
Yeah.
Somebody must put it together and put a cover
That would
on
make a nice gift.
Put
for
that on
the shining
your shelf,
fan in your life.
right? By Jack Torrance. You come up with a title.
Right.
Oh, we know the title.
Yeah.
It's all he could type. Right?
You like lamb, Doc?
I like lamb.
Yeah.
We barely scratched the surface.
We barely scratched the surface. I love that final shot of Jack in the snow, which is kind of iconic. He's got icicles. I've seen Christmas decorations that use that version of Jack as a little bulb to put on your tree.
Cute. I like that.
I love that.
I really appreciated that final scene. It's weirdly happy ending. Like, you get to watch Danny torture Jack.
I'll tell you something else too. The sweetest scene in the movie is Danny and Wendy inside the maze. And they're learning the maze. And both of them are saved while they're separated by the maze. Jack can't find Danny in the maze. And Jack can't find his way out to get Shelley, who is outside the maze. You know, once he's in it, the maze saves them. And it bookends with that sweet scene. And when they're having the sweet scene, Jack is looking at a schematic of the maze, the model. And he's looking with this demonic look on his face. And he almost looks like the puppet master. We're like, oh no, he knows the maze well, but he doesn't. It's all foreign to him.
That's another reason why the ghosts opening doors physically shouldn't happen, because if these ghosts are so capable, why aren't they helping it? Why does he have to do it all on his own? Like, why can't somebody go left, right? You
Oh
know,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, they seem hell bent on getting these people killed.
They're very weird ghosts and they act arbitrarily. Like they could help
Before
him in the maze, but they'd rather wipe Advocat off of him.
so I have all that pre-knowledge that from just general talk of The Shining over the years and stuff. By the way, never claimed I saw it. It's not one of those movies where I claimed I saw it. I knew that there were these ghosts, and I knew that one was a bartender, and I knew that one was sort of like a waiter slash like butler style guy. But I didn't know they like talked specifically about murder and evil and stuff. When Grady started being like, "If I may be so bold," or
Right.
"If you don't mind me saying, you might need to hack them to bits."
Yeah.
That I was surprised by that. I was like, "Oh, I didn't know." I always thought it was all, "Yes, Mr. Torrance. Would you like a bourbon, Mr. Torrance?" I always thought it was all very just normal behavior that you would have in a 1920s hotel. I didn't know that they like stepped out of bounds and were like, "You need to give them a talking to, or perhaps more."
Perhaps a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, they get down and dirty in the bog. They get it's
Yeah.
raceway fun. Yeah, let's talk taglines. The tagline, it has a number of taglines because it's from the era of taglines. It's
Mhm,
1980. And they're all kind of basic. A lot of them tie into the book. Iconic terror from the #1 bestseller. A
mhm.
masterpiece of modern horror. All of which are true. Here's one that I love. And this is one that was specifically for the British release. The tide of terror that swept America is here. Lock your doors, hide your children. Um, there's another one that is, this one is really kind of kitchen sink. It tells you everything. It's one of the type that you hate. This boy feels things no child should feel, sees things no human being should see. He has the power and there is no escape. Makes it seem like Danny is the problem.
Yeah. Jeez,
Yeah.
that's
Uh,
heavy.
it, there's another one that sounds almost like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. The horror is driving him crazy.
That
That
one
might
that
that might
was
be
Mel Brooks.
Japan. I don't know.
Mel Brooks.
Yeah, Mel Brooks. He's crazy pants. And then there's a final one that is kind of like, I want that 80s voiceover guy to do it. He came as a caretaker, but this hotel has its own guardians who'd been there a long time. And
That's it?
that's it.
Oh, yeah. I feel like there might be some really funny ones. I'm not coming up with them, though. Yeah, none of those do it for me.
Yeah.
I You'd think I would have seen or heard seen one on a poster or something, but I really hadn't seen any. I love the title. I think The Shining is a great title.
It's perfect. It's obscure and kind of
Yeah,
interesting. And yet, once you read it, it's obvious.
yeah. It's kind of how, it reminds me of naming these episodes after a line. Like, it's not Blood Hotel. It's
Yeah.
not, it could have been a lot of bad things.
In closing, maybe we should just mention the soundtrack, which I really love. It's otherworldly, it's creepy, it sets the tone, and I could believe it's a chorus of spirits
Mhm.
singing from the great beyond. It really fits.
It's also in a lot of places, it's very much a sound track and not a music track. There's like a lot of sounds, and
Yeah.
and I love that. I don't know. I'm sure it's an actual song, but I love anything that has that. I want to set the world on fire.
That is one of the, yeah, it's got,
You
yeah,
know
there is
that
a
stuff.
song like that at the end.
Yeah, the ballroom song,
Yep.
basically. I love that stuff. Uh, Vangelis uses a little bit of that in Blade Runner as well.
Mhm.
Um, but
You
yeah,
used to
yeah.
connect everything to Meatballs. Now you connect it all to Blade Runner.
There are real connections to Blade Runner.
I believe it.
You know, I wanted to draw a connection to Passengers, but
Ooh,
because you
we're
know
still
there
going
are
to
there.
do that in the future.
Okay, yeah, I would like
Yeah.
to do Passengers in the future because I want to draw my connections. I'm sure you're
Mhm.
familiar with them.
I'm your
Uh,
Huckleberry.
yeah, but yeah, the soundtrack was. You know, I think I started this by saying I was going to give it a hard time, but I didn't really.
No, you
Um,
didn't.
yeah,
What
basically just I don't
What was your
find
big
spookies.
problem? What was your big problem with this movie? Tough guy.
I ain't a you know what? You know what? It comes down to this. I ain't afraid of no ghost.
Woo!
That's what it
Oh,
is.
rest in
The
peace, Ray Parker
Shining.
Jr.
I ain't afraid of no ghost. I'm not. I don't like to watch women and children be. Uh, what's the word? Like
Terrorized?
terrorized. It's exactly the word. I don't like to watch, and I don't just mean axes and screaming. I don't like you should have eaten your breakfast. I
Yeah,
the way that's delivered makes my
yeah.
blood boil. It makes me.
Well, listen, then. For a horror movie, that puts a woman and child in jeopardy as much as this does, it gave you a happy ending.
It did, and I'm glad that we talked about, and I got to say I like Danny basically wearing out his dad in the maze, and then coming out to his mom, and then emerging emerging from the
She would have been
maze
cool with it.
into the arms of his mother, where Jack, who has spent the last of his energy chasing Danny and Tony may have even worked together to make sure that Jack did not come out of that maze.
Hmm. When little Danny traces his steps and walks backwards and then covers up the
Yeah,
snow,
he does like a jump to the side.
I'm
Yeah,
like, that little kid, that's my guy. He's a
yeah,
boss.
yeah. He turns up the gas to get a good lead on him.
He does.
So he runs as far as he can ahead so that he has the time to do the back stepping. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so that's such a rewarding cat and mouse. I love it.
Yeah.
It doesn't betray us as an audience because we really are betting on Danny. We're invested. We want him to make it out. And it gives us the best possible outcome. Because when Shelley's locked in the bathroom and little Danny is running for his life, you don't like their odds.
Yeah, no, no. Yeah, there's a grown man. I mean, it helps that he hurt his ankle, but
Yeah.
it doesn't help enough. When he's coming up the stairs and first of all, she's choked up way too high on that bat.
Yeah. She's
Um,
she's in full
yeah,
contact hitter mode. She's
yeah,
not
yeah,
swinging for the fences.
yeah. So, but that whole time, I'm like, this is not a good matchup. Like, she's in trouble if he gets a hold of that thing. Yeah, but these are all great. In fact, that he breaks through the bedroom door with the axe.
Hmm.
Wendy, I'm home. And I was like, huh, that was not at all how I remembered it or how I have perceived it through secondhand knowledge. And it turns out that he hacks his way through a second door. And I was
Yeah, the
like, oh,
bathroom.
I'm sorry. Wrong door axing.
Right.
I didn't know there was a second door axing.
Yeah. That's
This
when you
this
get
would
the
be
Tonight Show quote.
yeah, that's when you get the here's Johnny, and that's when you get Wendy in the corner, which is almost impossible to watch, but
Yeah.
is one of the greatest.
It's iconic.
It's one of the greatest acting moments maybe of all time.
She
Uh,
is fantastic there.
yeah.
She's so good. Funny aside, my wife and I moved to LA and we moved into an apartment, and our address in the complex was 237. And so we decorated our door for Halloween with the split in the middle of the door that said 237 with Jack's face on it and blood around it. And then we got the exact keychain from there, put it in the doorknob, left it there 24/7, which probably wasn't the safest, but we wanted it to look right. And the little carpet, that was the carpet from the hotel. So spared no expense.
Like a hotel matching doormat?
Yeah. With Overlook on it. Yeah.
That's really great.
Yeah.
That's also a confluence of things, you having the right number.
When I saw that was our address, I had to do it.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Because I could see someone doing that and putting up fake numbers.
Right. Yeah.
Or you go knock on that person's door and they're like, okay, hi, this is weird. I'm not sure how into Halloween you are. But I have this great idea. And I live in 116, so I'm out.
Oh, God. Make it 666, you idiot.
I'm doing a 227 thing. So,
yeah.
But what I would like for you to do.
So, in closing, I don't know how many Stanley Kubrick films. I know for a fact, knowing you as I do, you have seen 2001. You must have. So, how do you feel about Kubrick? And how many films? Is it just this in 2001 you've seen, or?
I think so. Well, didn't he do half of AI? The AI movie.
Did he leave?
Wasn't it like half Spielberg and half Kubrick? Like Spielberg started it and Kubrick finished it, or something like that.
I think you might have
Does
it
that
backwards.
Sound ridiculous?
Yeah,
Kubrick started it and Spielberg finished it.
Maybe he did pre-production on it and then he died.
It would make sense if it was the other one, because the beginning is very like, oh my God, this is going to be so creepy, and then it's like Disney.
Yeah, then that makes sense. That's He also did Dr. Strangelove, which was my favorite film for many years.
I never saw that.
Yeah,
again,
Peter
I've seen so many pieces of it, but I've never seen it.
Right. Full Metal Jacket.
Of course, I loved Full Metal Jacket.
That's Stanley Kubrick.
Another movie with like a first half and a second half.
Yeah, that's right, because we talked about Arlie Ermy when we talked about Life.
Oh.
He was the drill instructor.
Get down off my obstacle pile. I love the my obstacle. I just always love that.
Yeah.
But I watched this. I thought of 2001 often. And I thought, when I'm watching 2001, I have a lot of patience for this, what's happening here. When I'm watching The Shining, I have less. Like,
yeah, they're both slow burn.
Yeah. And
that's his
slow burn for space, I'm in. Slow burn for murder, not so much. You know, in space travel and all that stuff, it's like that stuff is slow and takes time. Like, you know, there's airlocks and there's, you got to check systems. And I like when a movie admits that you don't jump in your spaceship and fly off. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So in 2001, I'm like, yeah, take all the time you need. And in this, I'm like, am I really gonna do I have to wait so long to watch something I don't want to watch? Do I have to wait so long to watch someone berate someone or attack someone? It's just not my bag to scary.
Right. Well, welcome to Shocktober, everyone.
This is the most beautiful interiors I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
And like 5 different cases. The red bathroom where he gets cleaned off.
Oh, I love
is
that
insane. Bathroom. It's just gorgeous. The room with the rotting old lady in it is an incredible room.
The greens and purples in the anteroom before you get to the bathroom, and then that. Yeah. Okay, so I speaking of slow burn, I love Barry Lyndon, a film he did prior to this, and every single shot in Barry Lyndon, which is set way back in the Regency period or something. Everyone's wearing breeches. It's almost like a collection of oil paintings. Everything is so slow moving and long, tedious shots. And I think it's to draw us into the time where everything
Mm.
happened slower and everything kind of, took time to develop. And I think in The Shining, he wants us to feel just how mind numbing it is to be locked in this hotel with no one else, no stimulation. He wants us to feel a sort of cabin fever,
Mm.
I mean, that might be different from your frustration since you're just like,
No,
I don't like horror, get on with it. But
well, there
it's
is a
there.
part that's definitely part of it. Yeah, yeah, that's part of it. Is I'm saying I don't like horror. Get on with it. Like I just want this to be over so I can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my friend Glenn once said, you know, Tolkien he really gets across the how hard it is to make it through a forest. He really makes you feel that. I'm like, yeah, with fucking 100 tedious pages of prose. Of course, yeah.
I was
Yeah,
like, you lost me at Tolkien. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He makes it's like, he really gets across how tedious it is. I'm like, yeah, by being tedious.
Yeah.
Like,
You don't invent the golem because people didn't
yeah,
need a distraction.
yeah.
You got to give me
But
some fucking creatures to get through this thing.
it's just like, let me do an hour on grass.
Oh.
I'm going to do a tight 30 on the flora and fauna of this
Oh.
particular field we're walking through.
Overlook the two
But
towers.
it worked. I remembered something I wanted to say.
Mm.
I wanted to ask you, have you ever ridden a bicycle inside of a building?
I don't think I have.
We used to break in and ride our bicycles through the hallways of this high school really fast. And you don't know what fast is until you ride fast in a hallway.
Mm.
There's something about the walls being close to you that they fly by, and your tires are on linoleum.
Mm-hmm.
So they're
Slick
really
surface.
quiet. So you're just
Yeah.
like, zzz,
Yeah.
and so it's really quiet and you're hauling ass. And I got to say, Danny must have been having a good time
That big
riding
wheel.
that big wheel. I couldn't get enough of riding the big wheel around. That was great.
I
I got to
love
say,
the big
Danny's a
wheel.
great actor. When he gets off to check out the room and he tries the knobs a couple of times, he gets back and looks back. And yeah, I picture Kubrick going, look back again
Yeah.
and again.
I love the sound design on it too. When he hits carpet and it
Carpet,
goes quieter
wood,
and then
carpet,
wood,
stone. Yeah.
That's brilliant. And
It was really nice.
I love that we get the ride, but we don't just get the ride. We get the ride from Danny's height when he's sitting there. We get the point of view and we're like, this is a little boy. We're worried for him. He's tiny, and the Overlook is so impending. And it's also sort of the view of the elevator that kind of shoots blood out of it in his dream. So it's kind of like you feel like Danny during those sequences. It's great. It's a great way to get us in his head.
There's a lot of moving through corridors, right? I mean, there's Jack moving through the halls. There's Wendy moving through the halls. There's Danny on his big wheel. And then there's the hedge maze.
I was going to say it's a second hedge maze.
Right. Yeah.
They're lost in a maze. They live there.
It could be that the house and the maze are opposing forces, and the house tries to kill them and the maze tries to save them.
Yeah, the maze is outside. The maze is nature.
The maze is nature. The maze is get the book, get the 237, baby. The maze represents positivity and nature, and the maze grew. The hotel was built. I don't know.
We'll be in the recut of room 237.
Think about it. The hotel is made of dead trees. It's full of dead people and dead trees.
Yeah.
The maze is full of live people and live trees. Huh? Think about it.
Jeez, there, Edith.
Think about it, Edith.
All right. Welcome to Shocktober. Hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you next
scary
week.
Movies.
Yeah, Dave, you're going to love next week even more. It's going to be.
What are we doing?
It's a
we don't do that, right? We don't.
No, we don't do that.
We tease. We don't tease.
We don't tease. But it will be centered in another great edifice, a fun, iconic building. It is a comedy. I'll give you that.
Oh, now I'm looking forward to it.
Great.
Love me some funny.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, pal.
Hollis and Dave would like to thank you for enjoying Pop Culture Graveyard.